morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Welcome back. Indeed. Let's get our blood pumping by rising in the ways that we do, and let's join together in singing number 396. I Know This Rose Will Open. We'll start together as a unison and then do it a couple of times as a round, and just enjoy. You may be seated. I'm the Reverend Doug Wadkins, interim senior minister here, and I'd like to welcome our visitors and certainly our Lakewood Ranch and our UUCS folks, both here and also on live stream. We hope that you will all feel very welcome. If you are a visitor here, we invite you after the service to go to our welcome corner to find out more information about the congregation and to sign up to receive our contact newsletter and also to be able to get some of the links for various meetings while we're still on Zoom. However, if you're online, you can do the same thing by going to our Welcome Corner, and if you click on our Welcome Center banner on the homepage, and if you click on that, you can sign our virtual guest book, which will also get you our contact and the various addresses you need on Zoom to be able to be part of our meetings. So I hope you will do that. Today, of course, we invite everyone to join us after the service. Even if you're not here, you can Zoom on over here for a coffee hour outside in the courtyard. So we look forward to that. I'd like to invite Karen Bush to come forward and share some wonderful news about the auction. Welcome, Karen.
Good morning. I am Karen Bush, and I have very exciting news. We are going to have the Serendipity auction. As you know, this is the event of the year where you'll not only have your most fun, but you'll also bid on having the most fun all year. The auction's going to return to the format we've traditionally used of having the auctions right after the service on April 10th. Got it? April 10th. April 10th. Write it down. April 10th. After the service, we'll have a light lunch, and then we'll start the bidding and have some great fun. More information on that is in the weeks to come. For now, we need your help. We have a very short time frame to pull this off. So we need you to quickly, hurriedly go to the table and donate or sign up to volunteer for the auction. Members of our team are at the table, and they'll be happy to help you today. And so I will see you, and you out at the table later. Thank you.
Yeah, Karen, thank you so much, and to your team. Boy, they have been so flexible this year. So, and a second important announcement from a member of our board and our newly elected treasurer, Bill Payton. Welcome, Bill.
Well, Karen said we're going to have an auction, and you all applauded. So, folks, we're going to have a pledge drive. So good morning. Oh, come on, I know it's not a pep rally, but good morning. Good morning. Okay, now that's interactive. So when I say pledge, I want you to say how much. So I represent the Stewardship Committee this morning, and they were a little worried that I would come on too strong. They don't want me to give you the impression that all we care about is your money. But you know what? I'm your treasurer. And all I care about is our money. So, and you know you pay me for this type of thing. Well, actually I don't get paid. I skim a little off the top. But to make a long story longer, I joined this church in January of 2011, and within just a few months I found myself as chair of the Stewardship Committee. This is a great place, right? And so a few months later I was asked to join the Finance Committee, and I have served on that committee ever since. So about 10 plus years, and you might think that's a little too long, so please feel free to fire me. I've made a few observations over the years. The church has made budget, been in the black for 20 plus years, right up until the pandemic. And we'll probably even be in the black this year, but that's only because we had approximately $150,000 in non-reoccurring income. And in all the years I've been here, we have never once met our pledge goal. So what that means is that with Roberta's help, the Finance Committee would put together a budget, and we would have our pledge drive, and we would not meet goals, so we would have to go back with Roberta's help and trim that budget, and we would probably take out items such as additional staffing, additional technical equipment, additional visual aid equipment, and in some cases, money that we hope to have hired an associate minister in Roger's early years. So in the 10 years I've been here, we've taken what I would call a soft approach. Now, I remember as a kid, representatives of the church I went to as a child coming to the front door, knocking on the door, coming in and sitting down and facing my parents face to face, putting the pressure on them for a pledge drive. We've never taken that approach. But we've never set expectations either. We have always asked you to give according to the value you place in this church and in this community. So this year we intend to set some expectations, and I will talk about that. The other thing, we've always really been reluctant to talk to you about our needs. Fortunately for you, I am not so reluctant to talk about our needs. And I want to put up right now a slide that just blew me away. In the past 10 years, our average contribution has not changed. As you can see from the graph, it was $923 10 years ago and $927 this year. That's a $4 change in our average pledge. That number blew me away. The only reason we were able to survive and meet our growing budget needs was because during Roger's tenure, we grew by some 250 members. So if some 250 members pledged the average pledge, that's about $250,000 that helped us meet our needs. So this year, we're setting an expectation. We have asked you for $20 more a month, $240 a year. That will help us meet our goals. Now, a lot of people told me I'd be making a mistake by putting our average pledge up here, because we know that many of you pledge more than the average. Thank you. We assume you pledge according to your means. For those of you that pledge below the average, thank you. We know that you pledge according to your means. But we feel very strongly about our message. You know, many people go through their entire life wondering if they've ever made a difference. Unitarian Universalists do not have that problem. We make a difference, and you make a difference. So we'd like for you to help us out. If you haven't made your pledge yet, please add that extra $20 a month to your pledge. If you've already made your pledge and didn't add the $20, we're flexible. Come and see us. We'll take care of you. So you use Make a Difference. With your help, we'll carry on together. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Now we move into our worship and begin with a time of prelude. Thank you, Don. Very lively start. We move now into our chalice lighting. Our words are taken from the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Savage. We light our chalice each week with a simple spark to make holy our time together. With this flame, may our highest intentions be refreshed. With this flame, may we remember who we are and whose we are. With this flame, may our faith be renewed and reignited to guide our journey. We light this chalice in the spirit of the fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So, hello, Catherine.
Hey, Doc. I am so excited to be back in the sanctuary with all our friends here.
Me too.
I understand this month's theme is about renewing faith.
That is right. Yes, we will talk about the various ways that we renew and rethink our faith and what sort of commitment it asks of us in our lives.
Great. Well, what are we exploring today?
Doubt.
Doubt. What does doubt have to do with faith?
Well, we're talking about faith explicitly too, but doubt is really important to faith.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we ready to go into our demonstration then?
Sure. I think this will help you sort of understand what I mean. But to do it, I could use some help. Could we get... Oh, well, how perfect. Okay. So, here. I have here some cards, and I'm not going to look at them. I'm going to shuffle them here. What I'm going to have you do is you can actually pull from any of them. Don't show it to me, but when you find it, hold it up really high with the downside towards the congregation so they can see what it is.
So open it up, pull it out, and show the congregation what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so as
Hold
high
it
as you
up
can
high.
so everyone can see it. All right.
All right, we're
Now,
gonna put it back in.
put this back in anywhere you want. Anywhere. I'm not looking. I have no idea what I'm doing. As a matter of fact, here we go.
Okay, we're gonna slip it in here. Shuffle them back up again so you don't know which one it was.
Okay, yeah, okay, here we go. Here we go. All right, I'm gonna do it one more time. Okay, so I'm going to use the deep inner powers that I have within me, and I'm gonna pull one up and see if it is what you pulled out. So, here we go. Is that? Oops.
Well, we gotta pull out the card.
Well, no wonder it does. Okay.
Is that it? Is that it? Good.
Wow. So I am the great and powerful messenger from the universe. So that's how I was able to do that. You look like you don't believe me. Do you? I don't know. You don't know? Well, so how do you think I did that?
Probably because it's the same one in everyone.
You were right, exactly. So in each of these was the exact same thing. It was a magic trick. So, and there's a reason why we decided to do this, wasn't there, Catherine?
There was, because often we are told by a person who says that they are great and powerful, and for whatever reason, we believe them, whatever it happens to be, even if it seems far-fetched. So, I guess we believe in the teller's authority. But in our faith, we ask people to seek out truth and meaning for themselves. And, this is so different from a lot of traditional religions. So, we don't ask you to ignore that little niggle of doubt that creeps in, that thought of, this just doesn't seem right. So here's a perfect example. Last week I learned about Ethelred Brown. He is one of our first black Unitarian ministers. Over 100 years ago, he was living in Jamaica. As a teen, he went to his church, and on that particular Sunday, instead of just the priest up there standing and saying what the creed was, he had the congregation read back the creed. And at this point, he had a kind of, So this is what the pastor said. He said, "We believe the Father is God, the Son is God, and the Holy Spirit is God. And yet there are not three gods, but one God. So there is unity in the Trinity, and the Trinity in unity is to be worshipped." Well, Ethelred said, "Huh? I like math, and I know that 3 is not the same as 1. So how could you have unity in a Trinity and a Trinity in unity? How can 3 things be one thing?" And it did not make sense to him. And it's that kind of doubt that we are talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, since we have been Unitarian Universalists, we have felt that it's important to use our mind, our heart, and our hands in service to things that are loving and important. And therefore, we want to think very carefully before we decide something is true. And so we use our doubt to take a pause, to think carefully, to ask questions, and only then really decide what we believe is actually true. And so that's important to who we are as Unitarian Universalists.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that makes sense to me, probably to most of the people sitting here in these chairs. So, well, thank you for the demonstration today.
You're welcome.
So, I just want to say at the end of our opening hymn, I'm going to be heading out to our religious education for a lesson on promises and how promises and faith also work. So at the end of the hymn, if the younger youths will just follow me out, I would appreciate that. And so parents, you sit here, enjoy the service, and meet us on the playground after the service, after the coffee hour. Now, I invite all who wish to stand, if you're able, and join in our opening hymn, number 42, Morning So Fair to See.
Morning so fair to see, night veiled in mystery, glorious the earth and resplendent skies. Pilgrims we march along, singing our pilgrim song as through an earthly paradise. All are the verdant trees, deep are the flashing seas, glorious each under the season spring. Brighter our chastened eyes, shining in pilgrims' eyes, from which our waking spirits sing. Age after age we rise, neath the eternal skies, into the light from the shadowed past. Still shall our pilgrim song, buoyant and brave and strong, resound while life and mountains last. As we move now into a time of meditation, centering, and a time of quiet and singing together, I'm aware that this week we continued, probably many of our hearts and minds, to be thinking about what's happening in Ukraine, and every day a new set of images and news that deeply troubles us. We also know that things are very complex here on this soil as well, and here in Florida. And so there is much. I've heard more people than even during the pandemic talk about how stressed they are about what's happening in the world and how worried they are. And so I felt like this particular centering was especially important. Meditation in Challenging Times by Joan Javier Duval. Holy mystery, silent presence, uncertain bearer of the weight of it all, in these quiet moments we listen. We listen for the maybe still breathing, maybe still whispering, faintest sign of the universal good. We listen between the cacophony of distractions pulling us towards untruth and falsehood. We listen amidst the shrill cries of desperation, of we've had enough, of when will they stop killing my people, of how much more will the waters rise, of when will it be safe to return to my home, how much longer can I hang on? Help us, abiding love, to hang on, to hold on when all is in question, when all is in doubt. Help us to stay firm to our own commitments and our own promises. Lead us back into connection, back into the bonds of humanity that help us know each other as beloved. May we continue to listen. May we continue to watch. May we beckon love, justice, and mercy with our own whispers, with our shouts, with our cries, with how we act each and every day, until all know themselves to be part of the circle of love and life. So may it be. I invite you to a few moments of quiet together, and then remaining seated, let's sing together, Spirit of Life. as we prepare to reflect together on our theme. The reading is taken from the writing of Buddhist Sharon Salzberg. For me, faith has a lot to do with courage. And it's the courage to step forward into the unknown. And first of all, to admit that we don't know. To actually admit we don't know, and yet to say, you know, I have the strength to go forward anyway. It's connecting with our own deepest strength so that we're not defined by this circumstance we find ourselves in on any given day. The opposite of faith is not doubt, it's despair. As we prepare to receive our offering this morning, may we remember the ways that we give our gifts in the world, all of them, the gifts of our time, our affection, our resources. It all matters deeply. And so every week when we do this together, it is an opportunity to think much larger than just what you decide to give to the congregation, as important as that is. But we also remind you that in addition to being able to give here in the sanctuary, if you are at home, you can both use the donate button that is on our homepage, but also underneath the description in YouTube, there's also a link as well. Regardless of how you give, know what a difference it makes to us to be able to do our work in the world. The offering will now be given and received in a spirit of generosity. It has been my practice since before I was a Unitarian Universalist minister to always have a spiritual director. The word director, however, is a little misleading about their role. Spiritual directors really tend to be folks who just listen and listen about what's happened in your life that seems important to you, and then explore with you, reflecting about how it may be teaching you something essential, especially about the big questions that we all sort through in our lives, and the specific things that over and over again each of us tries to grapple with in thinking about who we are and what brings meaning. Now, over the years, I've had many spiritual directors, and this isn't even the entire list. I've had a rabbi, an Anglican minister, a Celtic religious layperson, a Lutheran, an American Baptist, and a UU minister, Mary Gregolia. Now, Mary was a part of my life in a very essential component of change. When I had just completed 13 years out in Bellingham, Washington, and moved to Cleveland to do my first interim gig. And she really helped me think about who I was after so many years in one place and changing. And she, in addition to being a UU minister, is a fairly famous composer and musician. As a matter of fact, she wrote the opening round that we did. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. She tells this story about how she wrote that song. When she was in seminary, she took a class on death and dying, and the assignment was to write their own eulogy, which of course means the good words we'd like to remain about our lives. So she thought and thought what to say and what not to say, and she decided, hey, I'm a songwriter. I need to say it in music. So she writes, after I decided I would write a song for my project paper, I set the perfect ambiance, prepared a tray with a journal and a pen. I had a tray with tea and healthy snacks, and then I went out into the perfect afternoon to sit under the Meyer lemon tree in my backyard, ready for and courting inspiration. And I spent several hours journaling and grateful for the beauty of the afternoon. And no music came. None. Not a single note. And I realized the hubris of the ego saying it would write the song. So she scooped up everything, accepting the folly of her presumption. And as she was balancing the tray coming through the door, and she points out, yes, literally a liminal experience, she realized she was singing something under her breath. And what it was the whole round, absolutely complete as it was. She writes, what I take from this experience is the great responsiveness of the universe, deep and creative, within ourselves and around us, when we allow ourselves to be present, to listen, to sing along, but not to assume that we can control its scope or its view. I know this rose is the answer to my invitation to my deepest self. The way I hear and feel it, I am the rose. Opening is my nature. And even when it comes time to let go of this body practice, I still know this rose will open. And although I may feel afraid of the changes, afraid of the unknown I can't control, afraid of allowing the ego to follow the calling of something deeper, I know those fears will burn away. And as they burn away, I know and I trust that the wings of my heart, my soul, will unfurl. And so from that simple moment, I realized that we are all the rose, each in our own way opening. We must trust in that opening. I use that example because Reverend Gregolia follows in a long line of our forebears that were actually quite faithful in their response to the complexity of life. Actually, it is crucial to our legacy as Unitarian Universalists that we understand how core the idea of faith is to our identity. It is often the case that we want to be sure, certainly, very clear about what we are talking about when we speak of our faith. We may often identify that word with something rather pious. But in truth, most faith is actually quite every day in its grounding. Faith is the way we encounter the unpredictability, uncertainty, and mystery of existence in a way that encourages us to move forward in our lives more meaningfully, more elegantly, and creatively, to live from a deeper place whenever we may. Gregoria experienced that in thinking about the good word that she wished to leave to testify about how she had spent her one wild and precious life. Even knowing that fear is present, but temporary. Knowing that we are each ultimately called to find our own way in life, we choose to put our energies not into capitulating to the impressive forces that we all often experience, the doubts, the naysayers, the difficulty in realizing even the simplest of dreams that we have in our lives. But we move forward in a way that somehow comes from a place of trust. Thomas R. Smith wrote in his poem, "It's like so many other things in life to which you must say no or yes. So you take your car to the new mechanic. Sometimes the best thing you can do is trust. The package left with the disreputable-looking clerk, the check gulped by the night deposit, the envelope passed by dozens of strangers, all show up at their intended destination at least sometimes. The theft that could have happened doesn't. The wind finally gets where it was going, through the snowy river. And the river, even when frozen, arrives at the right place. And sometimes you sense how faithfully your life is delivered, even though you can't read the address." It may be that faith points us all in some way to something very primal in our lives that we may not even consciously always realize. Marcus Borg, who was the consummate liberal New Testament scholar and theologian, maybe one of the most read by Unitarian Universalists about the New Testament, explains this. The Hebrew word for faith in the Old Testament is emunah. And what makes that word interesting, he writes, is that that is also the sound in Hebrew that a baby donkey makes when it is calling for its mother. To appreciate that, he says you have to say emunah so that it sounds like a braying donkey. And sometimes I think to myself, and I say it softly, it's almost like braying. The point being that faith in the Hebrew Bible is like a baby donkey calling out and crying for its mother. There's something wonderful about that, he continues. There is an element, I don't know if you want to say of desperation in it or not, but there is certainly an element of confidence that the cry will be heard. It may be even for we Unitarian Universalists that there is some primal longing with us that gives us a sense of agency and compassion in life that helps us see what we want to do and value it as important. Think about the number of times throughout our lives that we have made choices where we know there is so much evidence that it could go so wrong. And it probably often would be easier to not do anything at all and play it safe day after day. And yet, we, of all people, very often are the folks who will step forward even if we stumble horribly, again and again, for what we believe is deeply true. What we trust is worth doing, even if we don't quite understand how deeply we are trusting in the risk that we are taking. But what do we trust? Well, while the true answer may be personal, we have our own ways of experience what we understand as trustworthy and reliable. Barbara Prose says this, though. At the center of faith is patience, a willingness to trust in a timing, a timeline, an unfolding that is not of our own. also to see life as a patient unfolding of and a search for what is meaningful. If we don't need faith to live, instead we find a way to live to find our faith. Certainly Gregolia voted for that in her trust of the opening of our lives again and again, even at its very end. The ways that we are called into freedom, to choose, and to do what is most important. We trust in the power of time to put things in perspective and renew our energy, but ultimately for our forebears, Unitarians and Universalists both, we also put our trust in the basic goodness of life, in the worthiness of people, really all creatures on this planet. Part of what especially our Universalists said is rather than being cynical always about life, our faith asks us to trust in possibility. And it wasn't like they lived in a time where human beings were acting any better than they are now. But nonetheless, the difference was to add to the great awfulness of life by acting from a place of distrust. Instead, our forebears were clear. The right path was to move in the direction of love, to move in the direction of trust. So one half of it has to do with choosing carefully what we trust. The other part of it does, as we alluded to, have to do with doubt. Albert Hufstekler wrote this: "There is always that edge of doubt. Trust it. That's where the new things come from. If you can't live with it, get out, because when it's gone, you're on automatic, repeating something you've learned. Let your prayer be, save me from that tempting certainty that leads me back from the edge, that dark edge where the first light breaks." Part of the reason that our doubt is so important to us, in addition to the way it leads to our critical approach to life, to our question-asking nature, as important as that is that doubting edge is often what leads us to the most creative and important of issues in our lives. Those are always the places that are most edgy and most challenging, and the places where we have the deepest doubt. As Anne Lamott reminds us, I have a lot of faith, but I'm also afraid a lot. I have no real certainty about anything. She writes, I remember something Father Tom told me, that the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty. Certainty is missing the point entirely. Faith includes noticing the mess, the emptiness, the discomfort, and letting it be there until some light returns. So as we move through this month and we think about the ways that our trust and our doubt work powerfully together, may we think about how that balance works in our lives. And remember that both of them, in that careful dance with each other, are necessary for us to make the most courageous and powerful choices in our lives. If we move too much in doubt, we can use it as a false god to dismiss almost every possibility. And if we move too far into being foolishly trusting, then often we actually feel that we are acting from things that are not authentic or powerful enough to lead us forward. We need that balance, and we will not always get it right. And so we also need places like this to come together and recalibrate and rethink how we are moving through our lives. Whether we are trusting too much or too little, whether we are letting our doubts lead us to better clarity rather than stepping back from making choices. Our own Victoria Safford reminds us, Faith feels like the most private, solitary thing, but it's not. It's communal and contagious. Faith is what our hands hold all together when none of us is strong enough to hold on by ourselves. So we are people of faith. Anything that is worth doing requires faith. We would never fall in love. We would never commit ourselves in partnership. We would never have children. We would probably keep the same job for life. We would not work for justice if we were not people of faith. All of them have repeated evidence that they will be very hard, challenging work and that we will often fail. And yet, we still live our lives boldly, at least as boldly as we can. Finally, I recall years ago in theological school when I heard this quote from Adrienne Rich. She wrote, "My heart is moved by all I cannot say. So much has been destroyed. I have cast my lot with those who age after age, perversely, with no extraordinary power, reconstitute the world." For the first time, I realized that the reason that statement still is so powerful to me is what she was saying simply was a statement of faith. And I think it's probably the sort of faith that many of us live. We have no extraordinary powers, but every day we get up and try to change the world for the better. That work is important. May this month help you do it better and more lovingly. So may it be. I invite you to rise in the ways that we do and join in our closing hymn. Hymn number 194, Faith is a Forest.
A forest in which clouds play and hide. Insight can hear the still small voice deep inside. Web of life may thread I weave, strength and commitment to all I believe. Vision be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say. Seeds of both weak and strong are scattered in air. Dignity shines undimmed by bigotry's glare. Web of life, may this thread I weave. Help me bear witness to all I believe. Justice be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say. Fortune and famine ride the swift winds of chance. Sorrow and pleasure seem united in dance. Web of life, may this thread I weave. Mingle compassion with all I believe. Mercy be my guide as I seek my way. Lead me into this tender day. Speak through me in all I do and say.
And now as we prepare to leave, our closing words are taken from Marilyn McIntyre. What to do in the darkness, which is leave the mask on your glasses. Oh, sorry, this is going to drive me nuts. There we go. I hate when that happens too. Go slowly. Consent to life, but don't wallow in it. No, it is a place of germination and growth. Remember the light. Take an outstretched hand if you find one. Exercise unused senses and find the path by walking it. Practice trust and watch for the dawn. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of wisdom, the warmth of human connection, or the power of our call to justice. These remain until we gather in this place again. Thanks for being here this week. I look forward to seeing you again next week, and I'll see you at coffee hour.